Jack was alone on the abandoned space station. It floated in orbit above a dead moon, silent and broken. He was a scavenger, looking for old tech, wires, batteries, anything he could sell. The place was cold and dark, with lights that flickered, like tired stars. But Jack didn't mind. He had worked in worse places before. He was used to the silence, until the silence broke. At first, it was soft, a scratching noise in the vents above him. Jack looked up, thinking maybe a rat or small crawler was hiding, but the noise didn't sound like claws. It sounded like fingers, tiny ones, moving slowly through the metal tubes. He shrugged it off. Probably just old wires falling or wind from the broken air system. He went back to work, pulling out a damaged power core and wrapping it in cloth. But then came the second sound, breathing, very soft, very close. Right behind him, Jack turned fast, light in hand, but saw nothing, just shadows, that night while eating his dried meal by a small fire. He heard it again, tap, 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 this time from the upper vent near the ceiling. He stood, slowly, and pointed his flashlight. The beam flickered once, then lit up a pair of glowing eyes, small, round, and terrified. A face peeked out, covered in dust, hair wild, skin pale. It was a child. Noah, tiny alien girl. She stared at him like a scared animal. Thin arms hugged the metal bars of the vent. Her cheeks were sunken, and her body too thin. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Before he could speak, she vanished. Pulling back into the dark vent like smoke, Jack stood there, frozen. He had seen many things in his years: robots, pirates, wild beasts, but never a child hiding. In the vents, he didn't sleep much that night. He kept the fire low and left half his food on the floor, just in case. In the morning, the food was gone. No sound, no footprints, just an empty plate. Jack smiled a little. She was real. And she was hungry. He kept working during the day, but placed more food around quietly. Some in a corner, some near the warm pipes. At night, the food would be gone again. He started talking out loud, telling stories, laughing at his own jokes, just in case she was listening. Days passed. Sometimes he saw her eyes, watching from the shadows. Sometimes he heard her breathing, soft, like a whisper. She never came close, but she didn't run anymore. That was a start. He tried to speak to her directly. "It's okay," he said gently. "One night, I won't hurt you." The eyes blinked slowly, but said nothing. Still, she stayed longer each time. Watching, listening, curious, Jack decided to give her a name. "You need a name," he said. Looking toward the vent, "I'll call you Me." The name was short, soft, like a song. He hoped she liked it. He didn't know if she understood, but one night, she left a piece of cloth, folded neatly on top of the food tray. It was a thank you, a small gift. His heart warmed. The station no longer felt so empty. He started humming while working, talking to her like she was beside him. He found a broken toy in the supply room, a small cube that lit up with color. He fixed it and left it near her vent. The next morning, it was gone. But he heard soft laughter that night. Like a breath of joy, Jack sat by the fire, staring into the flames. He thought about how scared she looked that first night. What had she been through? Why was she hiding here? Was someone looking for her? Or had someone left her behind? Whatever the reason, Jack had made up his mind. He wasn't leaving her here. He would find a way to help her. But first, she had to trust him fully. As he lay back on his blanket, eyes heavy, he whispered toward the ceiling, "Good night, Me." He didn't hear a reply, but for a moment, he thought he saw a small shadow moving across the pipe above. She was watching, and she didn't run. She was still afraid, but maybe, just maybe, that was starting to change. The next few days were quiet. Jack worked like usual, cleaning wires, fixing broken lights, searching for salvage, but he wasn't alone anymore. He could feel her watching him from the pipes, the shadows. Behind the dusty crates, she was always there, silent as a ghost. Sometimes when he turned his head quickly, he would catch a glimpse. A flash of blue skin, thin fingers, a wisp of hair. But she would vanish like smoke. She never spoke. Never touched anything while he watched. Still, she left signs. An empty plate, a shifted tool. A soft footprint in dust. He kept calling her me, and always spoke gently. Me, I'm going. To fix the power lines today. Me, don't eat the rations in the red box. They're expired. He didn't know if she understood, but it made the place feel more alive, and strangely, it made him feel less alone. One night, Jack lit a fire and lay on his side, tired from work. He closed his eyes and listened to the soft hum of the old station. Minutes passed. Then he heard its soft breathing, careful, slow, afraid. His eyes stayed shut, heart beating slower. He didn't move. A quiet step, then another. He felt a slight pull on his jacket, just a tiny tug near his shoulder. Then, warmth, something small, pressed against him. Just for a moment. A head, maybe, or hands. Then, it was gone. He waited until morning. When he awoke, there was a thread of silver hair on his coat. His guess was right, she had come close, very close. From that day, her courage grew. She would come out more often, only at night. She'd sit across the fire, hugging her knees, watching him silently. Whenever Jack moved, she would freeze, like a stone. But if he kept still, she stayed longer. She never spoke, but her wide eyes said everything: fear, wonder, and confusion. One evening, Jack placed 2 cups near the fire. One for him, one for her. He filled both with warm broth, then sat back, hands away, no sudden movements. He took a sip from his cup, looked at hers, then smiled. Me crawled forward slowly, crawling like a wild animal. She sniffed the cup, looked at Jack, then dipped her fingers into the broth. She tasted it tanned, her eyes widened. She finished it in seconds, but looked ashamed. Jack only smiled and refilled it. She took the second cup and ran back to her hiding place. But he heard her hum as she sipped, a soft sound, almost like a lullaby. Later that night, Jack pretended to sleep again. He kept one eye barely open. Me stepped out, very slowly, walking with small steps. She looked around the room, then tiptoed to his sleeping mat. She didn't touch him this time. She just sat down near his feet, curled into a tiny ball, and watched him breathe. She sat like that for almost an hour before crawling back into the darkness. Jack smiled quietly to himself. She was learning to trust. Little by little, one morning, Jack found a bundle wrapped in cloth near his tool bag. Inside was a tiny carved figure, looked like a human with stick arms and a big round head. Made from scrap plastic and melted wires, it was simple, clumsy. But it was a gift, a handmade one. He touched it carefully, feeling the effort. Me, he whispered, you made this. He didn't hear a reply, but he felt her watching. And he placed the figure next to his bed. That night, the fire crackled softly. And Jack talked aloud again. You know, I used to have a daughter, he said gently. She was about your size. He didn't look around, just stared at the flames. She got sick. Oh, yes. His voice broke slightly. No medicine on that mining world. No help. A long silence followed. Then another sound. Soft feet on the metal floor. He turned slowly. Me stood behind him, holding something. It was the broken toy cube he had fixed and given her earlier. She held it out, arms shaking like an offering. Jack took it gently. Thank you, he said, voice soft. Me stepped forward and did something that froze him. She reached out and touched his hand. Just a quick touch, a second, then she stepped back. It was the first time she touched him willingly. She looked up with wide eyes and opened her mouth, but no words came, just a breath. Then she turned and ran back into the dark. Jack sat there for a long time, staring at the toy cube. She was scared, yes, but she didn't want to be afraid anymore. Not with him, and that was the beginning of something fragile, something real, something called trust. Jack had been on the station for almost 3 weeks now. He had found scrap, working gear, and even a rare fusion cell. But nothing compared to the strange bond growing between him and the tiny alien girl. She still didn't speak much, but she no longer ran. Me now sat near him at night, sipping warm broth from her own cup. And sometimes, when she thought he was asleep, she curled up by his side. But Jack had noticed something new, something that made his chest tighten. When the firelight touched her skin, it showed marks. Long, thin scars ran across her arms and legs. Faint burns traced along her back. Old bruises covered by dust. She never flinched when he looked, but she never explained them either. And Jack never asked. He just stared into the fire, trying to understand what kind of life left a child like that. One evening, Me was fixing a toy from scraps, something with buttons and lights. Jack was nearby, checking through the old medical supplies. He found a scanner, basic one used in emergency kits. Carefully, he turned it on and pointed it toward me. Just to check. The screen flashed red, then yellow, then flickered. Her vitals were weak, bone density low, muscle development irregular, malnourished. Likely injured several times in the past. He shut it off before she noticed. She glanced over anyway, her eyes narrowing. Jack smiled to hide his worry. "You're stronger than you look," he said kindly. Me tilted her head, but didn't answer. Instead, she placed her toy in front of him, offering it for inspection. He fixed a wire and handed it back. The toy lit up, blinking red and blue. She smiled. But Jack could feel the weight of silence between them. There were things she wasn't saying, things he was afraid to know, that night. While she slept close to the heater vent, Jack explored the station's deeper rooms. He hadn't gone past the sealed door on Deck C before. This time, he broke the lock and stepped inside. The room was filled with old cages, broken restraints, and shattered screens. He found a crate marked with alien writing and recognized the symbol. It was for slaves. Inside were tiny collars, control chips, and files. One file had a picture, blurry but familiar. A small blue girl with silver hair, sitting in a corner with fear in her eyes. Jack felt sick. She had been locked here, experimented on, probably tortured. No wonder she hid in the vents like a ghost. No wonder she flinched at bright lights and loud sounds. She had been treated like an object, not a child, not a person. He carried the file back to his quarters and hid it. When Me woke up, she looked at him with sleepy eyes. He smiled again, but this time, it hurt inside. He wanted to protect her, even from the truth. The next day, she followed him around the station more closely. Sometimes she held his sleeve with tiny fingers. Once, she even tried to mimic his walk, lifting her knees high with a silly grin. Jack laughed out loud. And for the first time, she laughed too. It was a small, broken laugh. But it was real. It echoed in the empty metal halls like music. Later that night, while cleaning his jacket, Jack saw something strange. A patch on the inside seam was torn. And inside was a tiny drawing. It had been slipped into his coat without him noticing. The paper showed 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands. Between them was a little heart. He turned it over, and 3 shaky letters were written. Jack stared at it for a long time. Then, gently, he placed it beside his bed. This little creature, this silent girl with scars, was slowly trusting him. And even loving him. She didn't need to say the words. She had shown him in every small way, but the past wasn't gone. She still jumped at certain sounds. She still refused to enter some rooms. And when she looked in mirrors, she turned away quickly, like she didn't want to see herself. Jack sat beside her that night, showing her a small handheld mirror. "Look," he said softly, "that's not a monster." Me stared at her reflection for a long time, then looked at him. He nodded. "That's you." She pointed at her chest, then at him, then whispered her second word ever. "Safe." Jack's throat tightened. He placed his hand gently on her head. "You're safe now," he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his soul. The galaxy had forgotten her. The universe had hurt her. But Jack would not. She had secrets, and she had scars. But now she also had someone who saw past them. And someone who stayed. Me was no longer just hiding in shadows. Now she walked beside Jack during the day. She held onto the edge of his coat as they explored the deeper halls of the station. Her steps were still careful, her eyes alert, but she didn't flinch as much. She didn't run. She was learning to live. Jack taught her how to sort parts, how to twist wires, and even how to power up small machines. She learned quickly, copying his movements like a little mirror. Sometimes she giggled when she got it right. Sometimes she made beeping noises. Like the broken bots they passed, Jack smiled every time. To others, she may have looked like a scared alien child. But to him, she was becoming something more. She was becoming someone one day. Jack tried calling a nearby outpost through the station's old comm system. He wanted to see if anyone could help her, get her medicine, food, maybe even a proper home. He explained that he found a small alien girl, weak, possibly experimented on. He waited for a reply. The voice that answered was cold. "You say she's small, scarred, silent?" "Yes," Jack replied. "Her name's Me." There was a pause, then laughter. "Oh, one of those," the voice said. "You'd be better off tossing her back where you found her." Jack's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Mutant stock from the labs," the voice said casually. "They were never meant to survive. Just test subjects, throwaways." Jack clenched his fists. "She's not a thing," he growled. "She's a child." "No," the voice replied. "She's property." Jack turned off the comm before he exploded. Me was standing nearby, holding her broken toy cube. She hadn't heard the call, but she saw his face. She backed away, afraid again. Jack took a deep breath and knelt. "No one's taking you," he said. "No one." That night, Me didn't eat. She sat in a corner, hugging her knees. She stared at the toy cube in her hands without blinking. Jack sat beside her and spoke softly. "I tried to find help," he admitted. "But they didn't want to help you." He looked at her, voice shaking. "They called you a mistake." Me didn't move. "I know you're scared," he whispered. "But you're not broken. You're not just some lab rat. You're me." He reached out his hand. Palm up, slowly. She placed her tiny fingers into it. She didn't speak, but her grip was firm. She understood. The next day, a ship landed nearby. A large alien merchant stepped out, dressed in fine armor with gold rings on his horns. He came with guards, scanning the area. He claimed to be looking for runaway property. Jack kept me hidden in a storage unit beneath the floor. The merchant walked through the halls, his nose wrinkled at the dust. "Tell me, human," he said, "you haven't seen a small blue creature? Maybe with white hair, thin arms, big eyes?" Jack stayed calm. "Why would I have?" He asked. "She's dangerous," the alien replied. "She was created with unstable DNA. A failed experiment." Jack's jaw tightened. "She's not a weapon," he snapped. "She's a little girl. Not yours," the alien sneered. "She belongs to her creators." "Her creators are monsters," Jack replied. The alien offered him money, gold, crystals, and even high-grade tech, all for a tiny freak. Jack asked, "That's a big price." The alien paused, then said, "She holds data." Jack raised a brow. "What kind of data?" The alien didn't answer. He turned and left with a warning. "Don't get attached," he said. "She's not what you think." After they left, Jack pulled me from the floor unit. She was shaking, her eyes wide with fear. He wrapped her in his coat and held her close. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't let them take you." She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. Then she did something he never expected. She spoke again. "Don't leave me," she whispered, voice trembling. Jack hugged her tighter. "Never," he promised. "You're not just a child," he said softly. "You're my child now." That night, me curled up in his coat pocket as always. But this time, she fell asleep with a soft smile. No more shaking, no more fear. She knew she wasn't alone. She knew she mattered. And Jack, he knew that whatever secrets she carried, whatever past she had, he would face it all. Because she was no longer just some abandoned test subject. She was family, and no one in the galaxy would take her from him. Jack didn't sleep much after the merchant left. His mind kept turning over the alien's words. She holds data. Why would they want her so badly if she was just a failed experiment? Why offer so much for one small girl? Something wasn't right. Something was coming, and Jack could feel it in his bones. He activated the station's old communication scanner. It could pick up signals across nearby systems. Most of the channels were quiet, but one message kept repeating on a hidden frequency. It was short, just a series of coded numbers and a bounty tag. Jack cracked the code and read it twice. Priority capture. Subject M47. Last seen, abandoned mining station Zeta 9. Reward, 10,000 credits. Alive only, no damage. M47. Me. His blood turned cold. Someone powerful was looking for her, and they were willing to pay enough to make anyone look twice. This wasn't just about a missing child anymore. This was a hunt. Jack didn't tell me. She was playing with a light cube, giggling as it changed colors. He couldn't steal that piece from her, not yet. But he began preparing. He packed bags, hid supplies near the escape pod, and studied the old maps. He began setting traps around the main halls. And at night, he taught me how to crawl through the vents against they had to hide. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded and listened carefully. But she knew something was wrong. One night, while they were sharing a meal, she looked up at him, her eyes serious. "Bad people?" she asked in her soft voice. Jack hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "They're coming." Me stared at the floor for a moment, then stood and walked to her little backpack. She pulled out something wrapped in old cloth and gave it to him. It was a small, cracked data chip. "I kept," she whispered. Jack turned it over in his hand. "Do you know what's on this?" She nodded once. "Bad things," she said. "They hurt us." Jack inserted the chip into his tablet and watched as lines of code and files loaded. He tapped through them, and his heart dropped. Videos, reports, and test logs filled the screen. Images of alien children in labs, being poked, scanned, injected. Me was in many of them, tied to tables, eyes wide with fear. They had tested her for psychic energy, brain power, pain resistance. They had called her M47 and logged her as most stable subject. One report stood out. Subject M47 shows signs of early psychic awakening, memory retention beyond expected levels, and possible data imprinting ability. Recommend long-term storage or memory wipe. Jack felt sick. They hadn't just used her, they had tried to erase her, but she had escaped, and she had remembered that chip. It was the truth, and it could destroy the ones who made her suffer. "Me," he said slowly. "This is why they want you." She looked away. "I didn't mean to remember," she whispered. I didn't forget." Jack gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to forget," he said. "They're the ones who should be afraid." The next morning, he sent the files to every open channel he could find. Pirate stations, resistance networks, even law enforcement. Servers. It would take time, but someone would see it. Someone would believe it. But he knew it would also make their enemies move faster. He only hoped it wasn't already too late that night. A strange sound echoed through the station. A thud followed. By a metallic scraping, Jack rushed to the security cams. 2 small ships had docked at the lower airlock. Figures in dark suits moved through the halls, scanning, searching. They moved fast. Too fast for scavengers. These were hunters. Bounty hunters. Jack grabbed me and guided her toward the vents. "Remember the path we practiced?" he asked. She nodded quickly, her little face tense but brave. "If we get separated," he said, "you hide and wait for my signal, okay?" "Okay," she whispered, hugging him tightly. He kissed the top of her head, then helped her into the vent. Moments later, the door to his room exploded inward. Jack raised his stun gun. Heart pounding, the hunters entered, their suits glowing. With scanning lights, one of them pointed. "The human has the data." Jack didn't wait. He fired, ducked behind crates, and ran. He didn't need to win. He just needed time. Time for me to get away. Time for someone out there to receive the data and care. As the station shook with the fight, Me crawled through the vent quietly. Her heart was racing, but her mind was calm. She remembered everything Jack had taught her. She knew where to go, where to wait, and deep down, she believed something new. She wasn't just a scared child anymore. She was a key to something bigger. And she wasn't running just to survive. She was running to live, to be free, forever. Smoke filled the corridor. Jack leaned against a wall, arm bleeding, chest rising. Fast. He had taken a hit while trying to escape the bounty hunters. But he didn't stop. He couldn't not while Me was still out there. He looked around for cover and limped toward the nearest utility room. Behind him, the footsteps of the hunters echoed through the station. He slammed the door shut and locked it. The room was dark, filled with crates and old wires. Jack opened his comlink and whispered, "Me, can you hear me?" A few seconds passed, then a soft, static crackle her voice came through. Tiny and calm. "I'm in the vent. I'm safe." Relief washed over him. "Good girl," he whispered. But they didn't have long. The hunters weren't just here to grab me. They had orders to erase everything, her, Jack, and most importantly, the truth. Jack opened his jacket and pulled out the memory chip she had given him. He had already sent the main data to every open comm channel. But the upload was incomplete. Some files were still locked inside the chip, encrypted, hidden deep. Jack connected the chip to his portable console and ran the last decoding tool he had. The screen flashed, then opened a set of red-labeled files marked PSY Core as he scrolled. His eyes widened. These weren't just test records. They were plans, government plans. From a powerful alien syndicate, plans to create mind-controlled soldiers using child subjects like me. The documents showed multiple names, station IDs, funding trails. And one chilling line. Subject M47 holds imprint of full experiment matrix. Retrieval is top priority. She wasn't just a witness. She was the backup. Her brain had stored the original data when the labs were shut down. They had deleted their files, but Me's mind had kept a copy. She didn't just survive their tests. She had outsmarted them. Jack exhaled slowly. "No wonder they want her alive," he muttered. But that also meant they would never stop unless the truth spread fast and far. He needed to broadcast the final data to a secure system. He chose a resistance beacon hidden near the old mining belts, but to reach it, he'd have to get to the main antenna tower, and the bounty hunters were already too close. He called me. Again, Me, change of plan. Her voice came back softly. "Yes. I need you to meet me near the top-level control deck," he said. "Take the vent to Bay 12. I'll meet you there." A pause. "Is it dangerous?" she asked. "Yes," he answered honestly. "But I'll be there." She didn't hesitate. Okay? Jack reloaded his weapon and slipped through a maintenance shaft. He moved slow, wounded, but focused. Each step echoed. Each hallway flickered with red warning lights. The station was falling apart around them. Systems failing, pressure dropping. He could hear the bounty hunters moving in pairs, using heat. Sensors to track him, but Jack knew this station better. Now he had mapped every hallway, every shortcut. Finally, he reached Bay 12. Mee was already there, waiting in the shadows. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, but she didn't run forward. She noticed the blood on his sleeve. "You're hurt," she whispered. "I've had worse." Jack smiled. "Let's get this done." He handed her the console. "I need you to climb to the top of the antenna tower and plug this in." She looked up toward the high ladder leading to the roof chamber. "It's high," she said quietly. "I know." Jack nodded, but only someone small can fit through the last hatch. "I'll cover you from here." Mee took the device carefully, her hands shaking just a little, but her eyes were steady. She began to climb, her small body moving with surprising strength. Jack turned and aimed at the hallway just as the first hunter rounded the corner. He fired, sparks flying, lights bursting. More came. Shouting orders, Jack stood his ground, protecting the tower as Mee reached the top. She crawled into the antenna. Room connected the console to the port. Lights blinked, and the system powered up. A green light flashed transmitting. Mee whispered into the comm, "It's sending, below." Jack ducked as a blast hit the wall beside him. He was outnumbered, but not out of hope. More ships began arriving, pirate vessels, resistance scouts, and neutral observers. They had heard the first wave of data and were responding. Mee's truth was spreading like fire as the upload finished. Mee climbed back down and ran to Jack. He knelt, wrapping his arms around her. "You did it," he said, voice full of pride. She smiled through tears. "We did it." The bounty hunters paused as new signals filled the air. Orders changed. Priorities shifted. They backed off, confused. Now the whole galaxy knew the truth. There was no more hiding it. Jack and Mee stood side by side. Exhausted, bruised, but not broken. The memory chip had saved more than just data. It had saved a life, and maybe many more yet to come. The stars above the ruined station shimmered quietly. Ships drifted nearby, some from the resistance, some from curious outsiders. The truth had spread. Mee's story was no longer hidden. Her memories, painful as they were, had become a weapon far stronger than any gun and Jack. Jack had stayed by her side through it all. Inside the control room, Jack sat slumped against a wall. Arms still bandaged, Mee sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. The silence between them now was peaceful, not fearful like before. Outside, the bounty hunters had been forced to retreat, and for the first time in a long while. The galaxy had seen what was done in the dark. Resistance members soon entered the station, moving carefully. One of them, a tall woman with silver eyes and a kind voice, stepped forward. She knelt beside me. "We saw everything," she said gently. "We know what they did." Mee looked up at her, then looked at Jack. Her little hand gripped his coat tighter. The woman smiled softly. "You're safe now, little one. They offered me sanctuary. A warm home, healing medicine, and a planet far from the reach of syndicates or bounty hunters. A place where she could grow, learn, and never be hunted again. But when they asked her to come with them, Mee only had one question. Jack too. The woman paused, then nodded. "If he wants," she replied, "he's welcome too." Mee turned to Jack, waiting for his answer. He stared at the stars through the broken window, thinking. He had lived his life moving station to station, job to job. He had never stayed in one place for long. But looking at me, he realized something. He had finally found something worth staying for. Someone worth protecting. Someone who wasn't just a job. She was his family, and that changed everything. He nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said, "we'll go together." Me smiled. The biggest smile she had ever shown. She jumped into his arms and hugged him tight. Her tiny voice whispered, "I'm not scared anymore." The next day, they boarded a small resistance ship. The crew treated me like a hero, offering her blankets, toys, and gentle words. But me stayed close to Jack. She sat beside him, her head resting against his chest as the ship flew through the stars. She whispered, "This feels like flying." Jack chuckled. "It is," he said. "We're flying to your new home." The planet was green, full of trees, soft wind, and warm sun. It was nothing like the cold metal halls she had known. Children played near streams, and birds sang in the trees. There were no cages, no guards, no locked doors, only freedom. They gave her a small room with soft pillows and a bed that smelled like flowers. She didn't sleep in it at first. Instead, she crawled into Jack's room and curled up in his coat pocket like always. He didn't stop her. He knew she needed time. Over the next few weeks, Me began to heal. Her color returned. Her cheeks grew fuller. She laughed more, even talked in short sentences. She made friends slowly, but she never forgot the man who found her in the vents. She told the other kids stories about a human who gave her food when no one else did. About how he never asked her to change, never forced her to speak. He just waited and protected her one evening. A ceremony was held in the village. Me was called to the stage by the resistance leaders. They gave her a medal not just for bravery, but for truth, because her memory chip had led to dozens of rescues. Other children like her were being found and saved. The labs were being shut down. One by one, justice was beginning, and it all started because one tiny girl remembered, and one human believed her. When they gave her the microphone, she froze for a second, then looked at Jack in the front row. He nodded at her. She smiled and said softly, "I was afraid for a long time." The crowd grew quiet. "But then someone found me," she said. "He didn't run away, even when I was scary, even when I was broken." Her eyes filled with tears. "He gave me a name and a home, and love." She looked down and whispered, "I'm not a number, I'm me." The crowd stood and clapped, some with tears in their eyes. Jack clapped too, his heart full. He had saved her, yes, but she had saved him too. In her, he had found hope, purpose, and something he never knew he needed. That night, back at their little cabin, Me climbed into his coat, like always. But this time, it wasn't fear, it was comfort. She yawned and closed her eyes. "Good night, Jack," she whispered. He brushed her silver hair gently. "Good night, Me." She curled up in his pocket, warm and safe. And for the first time in her life, she truly slept without fear, because now she was home. And she wasn't alone, not anymore.